Hey everybody, it's Carm here, back on a rather rainy afternoon. Wanted to come on and do a response video. I hadn't done one of these it's been a little while, and it's to Alex out in California. Motor247 is his username. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. Great guy, great deal of interesting music he's always showing, and he just started a experimental vinyl tag, and I thought I'd have a go at it. Just saw his earlier, and upon seeing the prompts, a lot of the answers were coming to me, so yeah, just I dug them out and figured I'd share them. So starting right in, the first one is show a record with improvised music. Anima? Something I'd found in the mid-90s, really for next to nothing, and it was a blind/deaf buy. A German group, I believe, on the Pilz label. I think this is from about 1972, and yeah, all improvised between the four members here. 2 side-long pieces. Has that kind of feel of occasionally touching on recognizable musical forms, but usually a lot of the times they clearly know how to play their instruments, but you could hear there's a feeling of the instruments were like found objects that they were just coming across and exploring together, and just finding new paths of exploration in the moment. And at times it's humorous, other times surrealistic, and then could be fairly intense, very kind of dense soundscape really between them all, and really refreshing the way it doesn't really refer, for the most part, doesn't refer to recognizable forms. Even when a little bit of jazz comes through, it's kind of in kind of a surreal gauze in a way, which is really neat. I hadn't heard this in quite a while, and enjoying revisiting this. And yeah, it was a real nice discovery from way back when. So yeah, Anima, and yeah, very interesting. Next up, show a record featuring a Moog synthesizer. Lisa Belladonna, Appalachian Wilderness from 2019. Maybe someone could help me with this too. I actually received this recently, and this will lead into the next video I plan on doing. I want to thank several people who've sent things recently, but someone had sent this to me. I'm not sure who it was, or didn't recognize the name on the package, but said I remember ordering it. But it's from Lisa Belladonna, who's a mostly electronic artist here. Moog synthesizer, as well as ARP 2600, Mellotron organ, ARP string ensemble, among other things, some percussion. Absolutely gorgeous. A blending of electronics with sounds of nature, water and birds. Really paints the landscape beautifully, but also through the filter of what you would expect with electronics, these kinds of electronics, more surreal, more dreamlike. Very much her own approach and style. Melodically is a very distinctive kind of phrasing, along with, you could say, sort of traditional sequencer-based patterns. Michael Honig's Departure from the Northern Wasteland, that would be a reference point if you're familiar with that. Although I'd say she has an even more organic approach, and just the way this flows is a really nice balance between, again, the kind of something more surreal and dreamlike, and these landscapes, which you wouldn't think of this kind of music when you think of Appalachia, which is really part of what's refreshing about it. Picture over here. Yeah, Lisa Belladonna. Someone I'd heard the name, but was previously unfamiliar, and I'm very much enjoying this. So very much recommended for Moog as well as other kinds of synthesizers. And thank you again to whoever sent this. If you see this, Lacey Belladonna, Appalachian Wilderness. Next up, show a record with field recorded sound. The wind harp, songs from the hill. It's really what it is. It's a wind harp. Looks to be up on a hill. Just the sounds that it's being made, quite literally being played by the wind. Speaking of surrealism again, one would really think this was an electronic album, processed acoustic from a distant star system. Really, it sounds far more spacey than earthy, though that's part of what is really appealing about it. It's so it's kind of an interesting incongruency in a way, but I love that. And it's minimal variations in tones, frequency, timbre, all of that, but really just beautifully minimal. Saying a great deal. If you're tuned in enough to it, with seemingly little, as far as sources, the actual sound source. But really, if you're in the right frame of mind, it can be very meditative, and again, it has a surrealist quality to it. Wind harp, song from the hill, for a field recording. Next up, show a record with a drone sound. Which by drone meaning long sustained sound, as opposed to the whatchamacallits that fly around, the drones. Robert Rich, Premonitions, 1980 to 85. Early example of his playing. If you know Robert Rich, electronics as well as acoustic, electroacoustic, really one of the innovators of what could be called ambient or electroacoustic music. Another artist that draws from dreams as well as life experiences, the landscape, inner and outer landscapes. As far as drone based, this is really him at his most sparse in a lot of ways. Doing more with again kind of such a minimal sound than just about anybody, and I'd say it was really quite formed at this even at this early stage. A lot of this was recorded when he was still a teenager. So I believe he was born in '63. So in 1980, several of these pieces are from 1980. It just it's a 4-record set. Found some years ago. Fairly rare example of him on LP, but just beautiful stuff, and perfect night music, dead of night music. This is an example. They all look like this. Similar covers and some notes back here. But yeah, great shimmering drone synthesizer landscapes. Robert Rich. Next up, number 5, show a record with spoken word. It's fun revisiting this. Ezra Pound reads his poetry. Reading his poetry. I believe I'd found this at Record Wonderland with Chris a few years back. And it's just his voice. There's no music or anything. Although his cadence, phraseology, dialect are so distinctive and very musical in and of themselves. If you've read his work at all, say there's a real musicality to that too. It really evokes. Really doesn't sound like anybody else. Once you've heard him, it's you know who it is. And love the cover art too. It's a sense of line and colors. But yeah, a nice example of spoken word that really takes you to a lot of different places, even beyond the content of the writing. But, yeah, Ezra Pound reading his poetry. It says this is volume 2, so must be a few others out there to check out at some point. Yeah, Ezra Pound. Next up, number 6, show a record with a processed instrument or voice. Laraji, Essence/Universe, 1987. Laraji, a wonderful multi-instrumentalist, primarily playing zither, electronic mode zither. So if you know that instrument, he makes it sound like, well, in a way, kind of similar to the Wind Harp album. Very otherworldly. They could come from another planet, or what acoustic music might sound like in a distant galaxy. Going through all these different electronic alterations, really sounding like a synthesizer, but it's not. It's just going through, I suppose, different filters. Where you have normally a plucked instrument, he makes it drone and shimmer and just go through a lot of different permutations. Very meditative, steady state, very, very soothing. Definitely takes you, kind of, you could say, out of your circumstances, but further into the moment of an eternal moment. And his music's always done that, and this is it's about a good example of anything else. And again, has that real sustained feel, very much like the cover. And very much recommended for that. Laraji for some processed sound. Next up, number 7, show a record that's on the Nurse with Wound list, or by an artist from the Nurse with Wound list. A group called Nurse with Wound, who I had only been familiar with by their name, so I'm curious to hear them now. They have a list online of all their various influences, very wide range, and Alex wanted us to pick something from that list, which again is quite varied. We picked out some Steve Lacey, late great soprano sax composer, improviser. This is Dreams from 1975. If you've ever heard his playing and his style of composing, both are just as distinctive as the other is, as well as the players on here. Irene Abbey, Steve Potts, Jean-Jacques Avenel, in particular, are long-standing members of his musical orbit. I played with him many, many years, and I have a piece here, written piece here by Brian Geisen, sung by Irene. Very free form, as well as nice balance between free form and the more composed moments, which again, if you know his playing and composing, couldn't mistake it for anyone else. So yeah, here's one for the Nurse with Wound list, Steve Lacey. And for the final one, show a record featuring a toy instrument. I had a little difficulty with this one, so I think this one might be more, we're not quite sure, more speculative, but I'm guessing there's something of that on here. The Spacey Bruce Lacey, of another Lacey. Film Music and Improvisations, Volume 1. Another one of those artists that's refreshingly difficult to pigeonhole, very much resistant to really putting him anywhere. Very much existed in his own musical and creative universe overall. Whether it was found objects, synthesizer, he would play with everything from flutes to typewriters to it sounded like his own synthesizer, something he either created or modified, as well as a ram's horn, just about everything. So I would guess, based on what I'm hearing and being pictured, there must be some. I'd imagine there's some children's toys mixed in with everything else, but a fascinating sound world, and both kind of, in a sense, primitive, archaic sounding, as well as space age, futuristic. Again, something like it could be from another galaxy, but very much his own thing. And the second volume too, kind of a continuation. Yeah, definitely very theatrical and it's creative in many different respects. Yeah, spacey Bruce Lacey. So yeah, if nothing else, it's very playful. So kind of like again, like a child discovering a toy, and has that same sense of wonder and possibility about it. So yeah, Bruce Lacey. And yeah, it's the experimental vinyl tag by Alex. So yeah, be interested. I still want to check out some more. Since a lot of people have responded, and interested to see what else is out there. And yeah, if you're not already familiar with Alex's channel, please check him out. Great guy, and always learning something new from him each time. So yeah, very well worth checking him out. It's playing in the background if it can be heard. David Parsons, Achmanaut. He's a New Zealand multi-instrumentalist, primarily a synthesist. I think it's from 2018. Eastern influenced. A longtime fan of his. David Parsons. Well, yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and please check out Alex's channel. I hope we're doing all well, and till next one. Peace, love, and joy.